how are we going to use language models in information retrieval? And here what you do is you come up with this formalism, or this conceptual sort of notion of how queries could have been generated. And then we're going to use that notion for ranking documents quite directly. So what we're going to assume is that the way that users generate queries has a very particular form. So when the user is trying to type something into Google, what they're doing, in fact, is they're thinking of what documents they want to find. Right? So the user imagines a hypothetical relevant document that they're trying to look up. So in this case, maybe they're thinking of a document about hurricane threats to the US. And based on that hypothetical document, so remember, now they don't have it in front of their eyes. If they did, they wouldn't be looking for it. But they're thinking of it. So in their head, there is this pot of words. Words are percolating. Right? And what they're going to do is they're going to take this percolating pot of keywords that describe the relevant document that they would like to find, and they're going to do random sampling from that percolating pot. So out of that model of what's in their head, they're going to draw a couple of words and use those words as keywords to type into their search engine. So it's really as simple as that. The user is thinking of a relevant document. That relevant document defines a certain probability distribution over keywords, and the user in their head samples a couple of times from that probability distribution and uses the sample, the resulting sample, as the query. So how do you use it for a retrieval system? Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to say we have a collection of documents and we have a query that comes along. So what we're going to do is we're going to build this hypothetical language model, this percolating pot of keywords for every one of the documents that we have in the collection. So we're going to replace every document with a little probability distribution that describes what kind of keywords would enter a user's head if they were thinking of that document. And then we're going to compute the probability of the query being observed as a random sample from each one of these language models. So every document is a little probability distribution, a query is observation, and what we're asking the question, from which probability distribution did this observation come? Or what is the probability distribution that this observation came from that document, from that document, from that document, from that document? So what that's going to give us is that's going to give us a probability, a number, for every one of the documents, and then we can simply rank documents in the decreasing order of those probabilities. So the document at rank 1 is going to be the document that assigns the highest likelihood to the query words, assuming that you're doing random sampling, assuming that the procedure that you use to draw the query is just reaching out into the model, pulling out a word, putting it back, and repeating it many times. So that's sort of a high-level view of what retrieval is going to be. Now, this raises a question of what is that language? What is that language model of a document? After all, a document is a string, right? It's just a string of text. So what is a language model? The way to think about that is think about the author who wrote that document. Right? Now, they wrote it under some conditions. If the conditions were slightly different and they were writing the same thing, they would have written a slightly different document. Or maybe a different author writing on exactly the same topic would have written a slightly different version. Right? So imagine the set of all possible variants of a given document, all possible ways to write the same essay, all possible ways to write a report for text technologies, coursework 4, right? So all of those different ways are basically exemplars of a particular document. So a probability of drawing a particular string is how many times you observe that string in all the variants of that document. And what you're computing is, if I was writing that document many times over again, over and over, how many times would I see the query in that document? That's the question that you're asking. Okay. So that's the right way to think about it.